This is a Best Syndication video production. On October 9, 2007, the Snowline School District of Pinon Hills, Phelan, and Wrightwood held a meeting where the opt-out form for military recruiting was discussed. By law, high schools are required to provide military recruiters with personal information about their students. The only way to prevent this disclosure is for parents or guardians to fill out and sign an opt-out form. There was some confusion regarding a conflict between the opt-out clause in the No Child Left Behind Act and the State Education Code of California. The school board discussed the confusion with local residents. This is a portion of that meeting.
We did send it out. In the interim, after sending the form out, we had an employee who is a veteran who evidently left Snowline service for a little while to do his military duty. And a good friend of his, who's a recruiter, said we need to re-evaluate that form because it's illegal the way we were doing it, because we were doing it strictly to opt out of the military. At that point, we contacted San Bernardino County, and we dealt with some interpretation. I just want to read a couple things very quickly. The 20 United States Congress 7908 of the No Child Left Behind Act requires districts receiving funds under the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, ESEA, to provide military recruiters with access to student names, addresses, and telephone numbers, except when the parent guardian requests that the information not be released. And then you say, see the accompanying administrative regulation, in accordance to guidance issued by the U.S. Department of Education and Department of Defense, even if the district does not disclose directory information to any third party, that would be if we don't release names or anything, the Department of Defense, even if the district does not disclose directory information to any third party, such as employer or colleges, 20 U.S.C. United States Congress 7908 provides that military recruiters must still be provided access to student names, addresses, and telephone numbers, except when the parent and guardian request that the information not be released. Districts that do not grant access may lose ESEA funds. You cross-reference that with Education Code California Education Code 49073. It says, no directory information shall be released regarding any pupil if a parent has notified the school that the information shall not be released. Then you go to Education Code 49061. Directory information means one or more of the following items: student's name, address, phone number, date, place of birth, major field of study, participation in officially recognized activities and sports, weight and height, numbers, athletic teams, on and on, degrees received, and most previous public or private school attended by the student. Education Code 49073.5. It is the intent of the legislature that a school district, in adopting a policy pursuant to Section Code 49073, governing the release of pupil directory information, not purposefully exclude any military service representatives from access to that information. After you spoke to us, we went back to the county and said, we have community members who are pretty adamant that this is, that our interpretation is wrong. They said, no, it's not. Now, I can tell you, having dealt with attorneys during my career in education, you could line up 5 attorneys on one side and say, you're right, 5 attorneys on this side and saying, we're right, and really until it's adjudicated, we have a responsibility. The school board has to follow the ed code. And the ed code interpretation is exactly what I read to you. Am I sympathetic to your position? I understand absolutely. I understand your position. You would prefer we not do that. What I'm telling the school board and the interpretation we're getting from county is we don't have that leeway. And until we can get something solid, we have to go by the California Ed Code and United States Congress 7908.
So, okay, so let me just interject, if I may. What is the position on the form at this point? Because one of the issues I heard tonight was that the form, we were told it's illegal. So where do we stand with
the form? The form that I worked out, actually, I met with two ladies representing the group. I understood where they were coming from, and we said, let's do this. And we did put it in the packet. Once the form was given and the recruiter saw it, said, I don't want to make a big deal, but it's illegal. Then we said, well, why? Went to the county, got all this information, came back and said, well, I'm not putting out a form with Snowline that is breaking the law, breaking the interpretation of the law. So we redid the form. And the form now says you can opt out, but if you opt out, you don't get directory information to anyone. Now the issue is you can, as a parent, come to Snowline School District and say, I don't want directory information released, but I do want it released to Stanford, Cal, UCLA, that's for you, and some of those schools, wherever you want it released. And then they would release it to that. You could come and say, I want it released to this job. You can come individually and ask for releases. But if you do the blanket one, it's not released, period.
Okay, so is there a form in place at this point for parents to opt out?
Yes, there is, and it's going to be mailed out, and it's a blanket form, which Mrs. McAfee is asking us not to do, to just have the one that deletes the military from getting the information.
Right. I understand that, but if in fact that's an illegal, and we can see that by Ed Code and we get Keith's opinion on that, which we have, then if we can't do that, but at a minimum they want to opt out, then they have to have the ability to opt out.
They will opt out on the new form. The new form will say they opt out of everything. Okay. And then the parent can come and say, I want you to send it to these 3 colleges. I want you to send it to these 3 employers. And individually do it.
Is that information on the form that's being sent out, that they can come in?
No, the form is a directory opt-out form.
Well, then how would they find out if they wanted to release information to certain schools?
The parent would have to go to, as I understand it, according to what I read, the parents would actually have to go to the site and instruct the site that this is a place that we're working with and we want the information sent. The information is then available to that particular one that she's designated. Otherwise, and you understand here that the entire issue is if you're going to opt out, you don't get to say, you can't specify the military, because the military says you're basically, yeah, exactly. You're basically going after us and saying, you can't designate just us. You either are in or out. Now that's what Ed Code says at this point. What are other districts doing? This can't be the first district to ever have this issue. Does anybody?
I do want Mrs. McAfee to know that after you came last time, we went back and said, is this right? And they came back and said, absolutely, that's the way it has to be.
I understand that. Do you think we could get an opinion letter from your attorney?
This has been a Best Syndication video production.